Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
It's me, Egbert, once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
John, I don't know if you heard this or not, but a group is coming in to buy some of the St. Louis area radio stations with an LGBTQ group. Did you ever hear about this before?
Oh, no. Is it the Rainbow Connection? The Lovers, the Dreamers, and me?
Right. And what they're going to do is they're going to reassemble. They're going to take down all the towers and take off the guy wires and put the towers back up with gay wires.
I know what prompted that joke, Brad. Oh, good job. Yeah, we do need some gay wires. Now, the good thing is, though, you can cross them back and forth because they need to be wire fluid. You know, so they don't just need to go directly up to the tower. Like sometimes, you know, late at night or when they're in a lot of stress, they can cross over to the other side. You get what I'm saying?
I hear exactly what you're saying. Okay.
And wait, are you able to identify the top and bottom or not?
I'm not going to say anything.
The bottom one's usually a little skinnier and more effeminate, right?
Well, as far as the gay wires are concerned?
Yeah, as far as the gay wires are.
Well, see, there's two different kinds of gay wires, or guy wires, whatever you want to call them.
So easy, Brad.
Everybody calls them guide wires, but they're not guide wires. They're G-U-I, guide wires.
I said it one time.
Yeah, guide
now
wires.
I'll never live it down.
Never live it down. Okay, well, see, that's the real test of a true broadcaster. A real broadcaster would never say guide wires. That would be like, you know, I won't.
When have I ever claimed to be a true broadcaster, Brad?
Well, hey, I try to, but, you know, they won't let me. But what's interesting about it is you have guy wires that are one complete strand are on AM stations. The guy wires are broken up in segments by egg insulators. How about that for
boy, Egbert would be proud, wouldn't they? And I mean, with the price of eggs lately, it's got to be super expensive, Brad.
Right. Okay. Buck Sexton. Okay. We said we wouldn't talk about this, but with all the experts who were watching the trial of Trump in New York City, with the Stormy Daniels and Mr. Cohen, who tells the truth and nothing but the truth, and all the other characters in there, Buck Sexton was the only guy to get this right. All the experts, you know, all these legal experts. Well, I think this is what's going to happen. I think it was Tuesday, possibly Wednesday. And it's interesting because I've seen this quote on social media where they actually pulled the quote from the show. Buck Sexton says that once the case goes to the jury in New York City, the Trump trial, that he would be found unanimously guilty by the weekend. So he nailed it right on the head. I mean, isn't that bizarre? I mean, and people,
yeah. But I don't mean to undermine that, but we all presume that the jury would find him guilty, right? I mean, I maybe saying right isn't the right way to end that sentence, but I didn't think there was any way he'd get a fair trial in New York City.
Well, I thought that what was going to happen was he was going to get. We talked about that the other day. He was going to get the 4-4-4 deal, where four of the people were going to say once again, the bizarre part of that is the legal experts are going like, I don't know about that. I don't think. And it's one guy I listened to said that there are like 3 or 4 Supreme Court decisions which would blow that out of the water. But once again, they're saying, well, the problem is this is in state court and it's not a federal court. And I'm going like, okay, now hold on a minute now. I thought Supreme Court decisions essentially were valid in all courts, just like the Constitution is valid in all courts. And if a county government agency is suppressing your right to freedom of speech, that's not something the county can say, hey, well, this is the county. We can do that kind of stuff. Don't you have to go under the Constitution? No, we can just, First Amendment, Second Amendment, we don't need those stinking amendments. We don't pay attention to those. I don't think that works. I think you have to abide by the higher law. But, here's the bottom line of the whole thing. It's so incredibly confusing that the legal experts, some of these people who have practiced law for decades, nobody had a consensus of what was going to happen. Everybody was different. And what does that tell you about our legal system?
True. That's true.
I mean, if you go to a doctor, if you go like to three, cardiologists, and you show them an EKG of a patient, and you give them a history of the whole bit, most of those guys are going to say, it's the AFib valve or whatever the heck it is. And they're going to be right because they've seen it before. They know the symptoms. They know when they look at the EKG, and they know the workup from the patients. He's got a bad valve, and they need to go in and fix that valve, right? But with the law, it's like this inexact science. It's like, okay, well, maybe this will. And once again, you're dealing with a jury, which to me is the whole thing's bizarre. And there were 2 attorneys on that jury. We said we wouldn't talk about it. Here we are talking about it. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, that also brings the point of like the joke about lawyers is if you ask a lawyer if something is legal, their answer is always, it depends.
Right.
So if you get 10 lawyers in a room and you said, can the judge instruct the jurors in this direction? 10 attorneys would say it depends. So, I mean, there's your consensus right there.
I personally have an issue with a short, and this is, I don't want to give too many details because, this might give away to somebody what I'm trying to do, but in a short six line statement, I have 2 attorneys. One attorney told me it was red. The other attorney told me it was green, if you know what I'm saying. One attorney says it's black. One attorney says it's white. And it's like, I'm going like, okay, now hold it. The other attorney says this. Well, they're wrong. It's that kind of deal. Okay, moving on.
Well, the good thing is you had to pay both attorneys, though, Brad, and at only $500 an hour, you got a bargain.
That's right. Yesterday afternoon, I get a call from a guy who I don't know, and sounds like a relatively young guy. And I asked him his age, and not that I'm trying to be an ageist or anything like that. I just started sort of curious. The backstory is, and I won't say which market he was from, but he was employed by Alpha Media Group, which is the group that owns the stations in Moberly, Festus, Farmington, and down in Lebanon. And yes, he's one of the guys that got fired. He was a news guy. Okay, now I'm going to throw a couple things out to you. I'm not trying to diss on this guy, but he's 24 years old, graduated from Mizzou, not with a journalism degree, but with another degree. And he was working in Moberly, not in Moberly, he was working down in Lebanon as a news reporter. Okay, some people probably figured out who this is already. And he's looking for a job. He's originally from St. Louis, lives in the city, moved back in with his mom. He's telling me this stuff, so I'm not trying to, I haven't named his name. But he said he moved back here with his mom because when he was working in Lebanon, his father passed away. And after he got fired, he decided he's going to move home with his mom and try to help her out a little bit, but find a job in the St. Louis area. Okay, now, I could use somebody who could write some news stories for us on our websites. We're trying to, gear up more with what we're doing on BJ's show and a couple other websites that we have. And so I asked him, what are you good at on the internet? And when I asked him if he knew WordPress, he said to me, what is that?
Oh, wow.
Okay, you just gave me the reaction I thought. Because of the fact that I'm thinking to myself, I have seen so many things nowadays that talk about that the college graduates, that no matter what kind of a job they apply for, unless you're, applying for a job out at the assembly line at General Motors, but if you're applying for some kind of a job where you're going to be working in an office environment, that it's almost mandatory that you know certain social media profiles, certain social media platforms, I should say, and you're able to update websites using WordPress. Isn't that sort of like, a given?
Yeah, I would say that it's probably the same as if you went to work in an office, you would need to know. If you were working in as an administrative assistant, you need to know how to use Outlook or Microsoft Word or Excel, just like the very basics of the programs. WordPress is the most, knock on wood. I've been using it for almost 20 years, but it's it's like the entry level, very basic. There's 1,000 training programs out there. It's just it'd be like saying, are you able to operate a smartphone?
Right. And WordPress, started out as a blog platform, and then it turned into essentially a platform where you were able to do websites with it. You use what they call themes, things like that. Don't want to get too much in the nerddom. But WordPress originally was somewhat looked at like, oh, you did your website in WordPress. How cute. Sort of like people look down their nose. WordPress has gotten very sophisticated where the WordPress organization comes out and says, I think the number is over 50%. They said over 50% of the websites in the world are done in WordPress. Okay? So I guess I was a little taken aback that he's a young dude, recent graduate of Mizzou. I thought this was like everybody knew how to do this.
Maybe not.
Well, I don't know. But the sad part of it was, and I have not confirmed this for myself, he said that they had a website that they used down there in the Lebanon area, and I can't remember the name of the website, but it wasn't a radio station call sign. It was actually like ozarksnewsnow.com or something like that. And he said that the
Central Mo Info is the one that KRES and Quicks uses.
No,
Central Mo Info.
Well, that wasn't that one. But hey, what's that one again?
Central Mo Info. So Kyle Hill is a great reporter who was there. I'm assuming Kyle got let go from Alpha Media. But Central Mo Info is KRES, KRES, and then Quicks in Mid-Missouri and Moberly.
Okay, is that centralmoinfo.com?
Yep, centralmoinfo.com. So that's the Alpha Media station in Mid-Missouri.
Okay, he says that the Alpha Media website down where he was at is gone. He says you go to that site now, Central Mo. I'm doing this.
Yeah,
right
centralmoinfo.com.
I'm checking it. It's still up. There it is. But now somebody's updating it because hold it. Let me see what the date on this is. Charges.
And I used to go to this station daily because Kyle Hill was a fantastic reporter. Brad, he's really your type of guy. He's an old school radio guy. I got to know him really well during the Monsanto days. He just has really deep technical knowledge, and he's just a great reporter. And I noticed, Brad, when you tipped me off that Alpha Media had laid off a bunch of people, about a week before, I was like, dang, is Kyle on vacation? Like, nobody is updating this stuff. And I just assumed that Kyle was on vacation, and then you smartened me up to the fact that Alpha Media had let a lot of people go.
Well, they let everybody go on the air. If you were on the air, they and we're not talking like one or two stations. Just in we call it the clusters now. The cluster in the Moberly area, I think they had 5 stations up there. It was Quicks and KRES and a bunch of other ones. And down to the south in the Farmington area, they have I think 4 or 5 stations down there. In the Lebanon area, they have 3 or 4 stations. And
now it's just McRadio, right?
Well, apparently, because here's the story on Central Mo Info. The number one story is charges against Scotty Scheffler have been dropped, okay?
Yeah, and then Jim Henson. And, Brad, where I'd go, and this may be annoying for people that are listening to us, but that's okay for a moment. But, like, if you would click on news, there was, like, the Big K local news. They'd have a lot of agriculture stuff up there. And now that's all been, that's just really old stuff because it hasn't been updated. Okay,
here's Freeman Insurance Player of the Game. This was updated courtesy of Freeman Financial on May 2024. Apparently,
May 7th is the last day that there are news updates that I found.
Yeah.
So what was that? 4 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, which is really sad. I mean, and once again, see, here's the problem I have. I would be willing to, and I don't have the budget right now to throw this guy a full-time bone, but and what's interesting is, and this was sort of funny as well too. Now and once again, I'm not making fun of this guy. I thought it was interesting because they say I'm an old guy. I'm 88. Okay, John's a young guy. John's like half my age. Okay, there are people saying, well, you just don't know what's going on. All the kids nowadays, they're proficient in everything. They can write code and they can do C+, and they can do this and they can do that and they can do every different social media thing. Here's a guy who's 24 years old and he didn't even know what WordPress was, and I'm going like,
yeah.
Okay, I'm a little concerned right off the get-go. And then when I said to him, he says, well, I don't necessarily want to be driving all over this. Because I told him, I said, our area of concentration is St. Charles County, Franklin County, and Warren County. That's where we are really trying to make a difference and where we're catering to those people out there. Because quite honestly, there aren't too many people that, most of the St. Louis stations are like the St. Louis area. And quite honestly, my opinion is the people in St. Charles County and in Franklin County and Warren County don't care about what Mayor Tashara Jones said today. They don't care.
Agreed.
Because they don't go into the city anymore because they don't want to get shot, or they get carjacked or something like that. And B, they've pretty much given up on the fact that, St. Louis is dying. We're out here in the boonies. Everybody makes fun of us because now we've got the good life. The people who live in St. Louis have the bad life. Okay. So having said that, okay. So then he says to me, I can't drive. I don't want to drive that much, because I said to him, most of our stuff's in St. Charles. And I go, well, I'm not telling you have to get in your car and go stick a microphone in front of these people's faces. I'm saying you call them on the phone and you do something that most reporters don't even do. You talk to them, via the phone, or even you find out, their social media profile, and maybe you DM them or something like that, and you get, direct contact with them and you ask them questions. And he was like, well, see, now, once again, he's sort of old school but new school, meaning that what he was telling me was he would literally jump in his car in the Lebanon area, and the mayor said something. He would go down and knock on the mayor's door, and the mayor would let him in, and he would stick a microphone in front of the mayor's face, and he would go back to the station, cut up the audio, put it on the air.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's very, laudable, but that's not the way it's done a lot of times now, And
where would that content go, Brad, if he were to cover St. Charles County? Like, what's the website where it would go?
Westplex.news.
Okay. That way people know. That's
where we put him, Westplex.news. But at least I think that site's still up. I don't know.
I'm going there right now.
It's an aggregation site. It just essentially sits there and runs itself. Actually, it's pretty cool. I did that years ago, and it just sits there and grains out the Westplex news, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I never really touched the thing. I do touch it from time to time. But I would like to have more information on that site. I would like to have more content on that site and essentially have it be more of a real full-blown Westplex news source, where if something happens in the Westplex, it'll be on Westplex.news. But obviously, and the other thing is, here's the other one. I looked at this one yesterday. I'm going to look at it today. And this is sad as well, too. And I'm going to ask you if you know anything more on this. Riverfront Times, okay? Riverfront Times, there's one story that's been up since May 22nd, and that's it. Jane Smiley's new novel, Lucky, draws on her charmed St. Louis childhood. That's been the same story that's been there. Nobody has touched that website as well, too. Do you know anything more on the Riverfront Times, who was sold to?
No, I don't know anything about that. I'm guessing they're just going to let it die on the vine until – I'm sure somebody has a Word document that has a plan on what to do with all the content and how to monetize it.
But
I'm guessing, if they were smart, they'd pull in feeds from other local creators, because – people would love to have their stuff on that website, even if it's not active anymore, just for SEO purposes and such.
But why would you buy a company, and why would the seller not divulge who bought it, and why would the buyer not come forward and say, hey, I'm the new owner of Riverfront Times, we're taking this to a new level? Why is it this question like, okay, so what happened? They fired everybody, and the website's just sitting there, and nobody knows what's going to happen. I mean, because pretty soon, people who have a daily habit, or maybe a weekly habit, or every other day habit of going to riverfronttimes.com, slowly but surely, it's the same stuff all the time.
Yeah, they're just going to stop going there.
Right, and once again, their traffic's going to decrease, their revenue from, if they're using AdSense or whatever, if they're doing, if they're selling their ad space on the various markets that are available out there, that's going to dry up. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand it.
I don't understand it either. And what they should do is just redirect all the traffic to bjshow.co, and people would have a much more entertaining time listening to our archive. Or they could go to bjshow.video, thanks to you, Brad, and they could do a binge this weekend of all of our YouTube videos.
And they could smoke dope and listen at the same time and have a real binge, right?
And be taxed at 12%, though, Brad, which is only fair.
John, say goodbye.
See you guys Monday.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?